The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had seen 10,000 years of arguments, friendships, and wars, but it had never seen silence like this before. Ambassador stood at the human podium. Her face showed nothing. No anger, no sadness, nothing at all. Behind her stood the entire human team. There were diplomats, military officers, trade experts, and cultural workers, 37 people in total. They represented 8 billion humans on Earth and 17 colony worlds spread across the stars. High Counselor looked down at them from his tall chair. He was a reptile-like creature with scales that changed color based on his mood. Right now, his scales were shifting from purple to deep red. This meant he was getting annoyed. "The Council recognizes the human delegation," said. His voice was deep and rough. A small machine near his mouth translated his words into the common language everyone used. "You asked for this emergency meeting. Tell us your problem." Did not speak. Instead, she reached into her jacket pocket. She pulled out a small data chip. It was tiny, no bigger than her thumbnail. She placed it gently on the podium. A small blue light on the chip blinked slowly. Waited. The other aliens in the chamber waited too. There were over 500 different species present, each one watching the humans with curious eyes. Ambassador said again. His scales were now fully red. "The Council demands an explanation. Your species has only been a member for 60 standard years. Making demands like this is not normal. It is not how things are done." Still said nothing. She simply turned around and started walking toward the exit. The massive doors at the end of the chamber seemed very far away. One by one, the other humans followed her. Commander Samuel Hayes, the military officer, closed his computer tablet without saving his work. Dr. Park, who handled cultural matters, took off her translation earpiece and left it on the desk. Trade Minister George removed the special sash he wore for ceremonies and draped it over an empty chair. "What is happening here?" shouted Delegate of the Collective. He was a tall, thin creature with 4 arms and bright orange skin. "You cannot just walk out of the council chambers. There are rules. There are proper ways to do things." The humans kept walking. Their footsteps echoed in the suddenly quiet chamber. Ambassador Aura of the Hegemony grabbed her communication device. She was a beautiful creature made of living crystal, and right now she was glowing with frustration. "Security," she said into the device, "stop the human delegation from leaving." "Let them go," said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him in surprise. "High Counselor," Aura asked. "I said let them go." Scales had changed again. They were now a pale color that none of the other delegates had ever seen before. Something in their eyes. I have never seen anything like it. It is not anger. It is not fear. He paused as the chamber doors closed behind the last human. The sound was heavy and final, like a tomb being sealed. That look, continued slowly, was goodbye. For a long moment nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The chamber was filled with a terrible, empty silence. Then pointed at the data chip still blinking on the podium. "Someone get that. Maybe it will explain this strange behavior." A young named hurried forward. There were small creatures covered in soft brown fur and was younger than most delegates. He had only recently finished his studies. He grabbed the data chip and inserted it into the chamber's main display system. The holographic projector hummed to life. A glowing image appeared in the air above the assembly. It was a simple text document, written in Galactic Standard, the common trade language. The document contained only 2 words. "We're done." Confusion spread through the chamber like fire. Delegates shouted questions at each other. Some demanded explanations. Others called for their assistance. A few simply sat in stunned silence, trying to understand what had just happened. Nobody had any answers. 16 hours later, the last human ship left Council Station Alpha. The vessel was called the Horizon's Edge. It was not a large ship, just a modest diplomatic cruiser. But as it prepared to leave, something unusual happened. The ship powered up its jump drive without asking for permission. It did not file a flight plan. It did not send any messages. It did not say goodbye. It simply vanished into the darkness of space, leaving behind empty offices, broken trade agreements, and 543 very confused alien species. In the council chamber, delegates stared at the empty space where the human delegation had stood just hours before. "What just happened?" he asked. Nobody had an answer. On the other side of the galaxy, the human fleet gathered in the darkness between stars. 47 ships of various sizes floated in perfect formation. Colony ships, cargo vessels, military escorts, and the small diplomatic cruiser Horizon's Edge. Admiral Dean stood on the bridge of the fleet's flagship, watching the stars through the main viewport. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes that had seen too many battles. His communication console beeped, a priority message from Ambassador. He accepted the call. Her face appeared on the screen. She looked tired but calm. "Dean, is everyone accounted for?" "All ships present. All 17 colony worlds have been evacuated. 8 billion people are now on the move." He paused. "Are you sure about this? There's no going back after today." His expression did not change. "We were never going back anyway. We were just too stubborn to admit it." She looked out her own viewport at the gathered fleet. "They never wanted us there, Dean. Not really. We were always the newcomers, the young ones, the species that hadn't earned its place. We earned it 100 times over." "I know, that's why we're leaving," smiled, but it was a sad smile. If 60 years of service and sacrifice couldn't change their minds, nothing ever will, and I refuse to spend another 60 years begging for respect from people who will never give it. Dean nodded slowly. "So what now?" "Now we find somewhere new, somewhere we can build something of our own, somewhere we don't have to prove ourselves to anyone." And the council turned away from the viewport. The council made its choice a long time ago. Now they'll have to live with it. She ended the call. Dean stood alone on the bridge, surrounded by the hum of machinery and the soft glow of control panels. Outside, the stars waited, cold and patient and endless. "All ships," he said into the fleet-wide communication channel, "prepare for jump. Destination, the unknown." One by one, the ships of the human fleet activated their jump drives. One by one, they vanished into the void, leaving behind nothing but empty space and memories. The galaxy would remember this day, but it would take a long time before anyone understood what it truly meant. 3 standard months passed since the humans left. At first, the council did not worry. The elder races told each other that this was simply a tantrum. Humans were a young species, they said. Young species sometimes threw fits when they did not get what they wanted. They would calm down and come back. Where else could they go? The galaxy was huge, but the council controlled everything important. The major trade routes belonged to them. The communication networks belonged to them. The established colonies belonged to them. Humanity needed the council to survive. At least that is what everyone believed. The first sign of trouble came from the collective. Trade Minister called an emergency economic meeting. He was nervous, which was unusual for his orange skin had turned a sickly yellow color. "Our agricultural shipments are being rejected," he reported. "The humans were our main customers for grain substitutes. Without them, we have 340 million tons of food rotting in our warehouses." High Counselor waved his hand dismissively. "Find new customers." "We have tried, High Counselor. The problem is that no other species can eat our food. The humans were special. Their bodies could process things that would make other species sick. They were the only ones who could buy what we grew." The chamber fell quiet. Ambassador Aura of the Hegemony spoke next. Her crystal body flickered with nervous light. "We are having similar problems. Humanity bought 67% of our artistic exports. Human collectors paid high prices for our sculptures and light paintings. Without them, our artists are going bankrupt." "Surely you exaggerate," said. "I do not exaggerate, High Counselor. Humanity valued things that no other species values. They found beauty in our mistakes and imperfections. They loved the very flaws that made our work unsellable to everyone else." More reports followed. Each one was worse than the last. The engineering guilds had depended on human advisors for solving difficult problems. Humans had a strange way of thinking that produced unexpected solutions. Without them, 3 major construction projects had stopped completely. The medical corps had been working with human scientists on important research. They were developing treatments for diseases that affected multiple species. With the humans gone, their most promising cures had hit dead ends. Even the collective reported problems, and this surprised everyone. There were a hive-mind species that had always found humans uncomfortable to be around, but now they said they missed them. Humans had been the only species willing to discuss philosophy with the. They had talked about what it meant to be an individual versus being part of a group. Without those conversations, they felt alone in a way they had never felt before. "This is ridiculous," Ambassador Ara declared. "One small species cannot possibly have made itself this important in only 60 years. Intelligence Director stepped forward. He was a species known for their military skills. His body was covered in old battle scars, and his eyes had been replaced with machines that glowed red in the dim light. "With respect," Ambassador said, "I believe they did exactly that, and I believe they did it on purpose." The chamber went completely silent. "Explain," commanded. "I have studied the records, High Counselor. Every trade agreement the humans made, every cultural exchange, every scientific project they joined, all of it followed a pattern. Humanity made itself the connection between species that would never talk to each other otherwise. They became the bridge between different cultures, the translator between different languages, the peacemaker between old enemies." His mechanical eyes flickered as he continued. "And they did it so quietly, so helpfully, that nobody noticed how much we had come to depend on them. Until now." "Are you saying the humans planned this?" asked. "That their leaving was an attack?" "I am saying, High Counselor, that we made a serious mistake. We thought we understood humanity. We were wrong." Paused. "And I am saying that we need to find out why they left before things get worse." Things were already getting worse. Without humans to serve as middlemen, old conflicts started coming back. The collective and the hegemony had been trade partners for 30 years, but now they could not even agree on a simple shipping contract. For 3 decades, a human mediator had helped smooth over their differences. The human understood both cultures. She knew when to push and when to back off. She knew how to translate not just words but feelings. Without her, the negotiations collapsed within hours. "They insulted our sacred traditions," the ambassador complained. "We simply pointed out that their methods were inefficient," the representative responded. "This is a fact." "There are no facts when it comes to our traditions. There is only duty and sacrifice, which your kind knows nothing about. We resent the suggestion that we are incapable of understanding sacrifice." The argument went on and on. Neither side could hear what the other was really saying. Neither side could bridge the gap between their different ways of thinking. Similar fights broke out across the galaxy. Border disputes that had been settled for decades suddenly started again. Trade agreements fell apart over small misunderstandings. 2 species actually declared war on each other because they disagreed about the proper way to write a dinner invitation. And through all of it, humanity remained silent. Far away from Council space, Ambassador sat in her private room aboard the colony ship Quiet Resolve. She watched the stars drift past her window. She had not spoken publicly since leaving the council chambers. None of the human leaders had. Her communication screen lit up, a priority message from Admiral Dean. She accepted the call. "Admiral, the Council has sent 17 different groups of diplomats to our old embassy on Station Alpha. They want to meet with us." "And what happened?" "Our automated systems thanked them for their interest and wished them good luck in the future." Despite everything, smiled a little. How did they react? The ambassador threw a chair across the room. "The security camera footage is quite funny." The admiral paused. "How long do we stay silent?" "Until they understand." "And if they never understand?" "Turn back to the stars." Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of council space, lay their future, a place where humans could build something new, something their own. "Then they never deserved to hear our words in the first place," she said quietly. The stars continued their slow dance outside her window. Billions of points of light, each one a sun, each one possibly circled by worlds waiting to be discovered. The universe was vast and full of possibilities. Humanity had spent 60 years trying to fit into someone else's galaxy. Now it was time to make their own. Closed her eyes and let herself dream of what that galaxy might look like. Behind her, the engines of the quiet resolve hummed softly, carrying 8 billion souls toward an uncertain but hopeful future. 6 months had passed since humanity disappeared into the void. The Galactic Council was falling apart. The economic problems had been bad enough. Species that had depended on human trade were struggling to survive. Warehouses full of unsold goods, factories sitting empty, workers without jobs. But the economic damage was only part of the story. The real damage was cultural. Humanity had been the galaxy's storytellers. They had been its entertainers, its philosophers, its dreamers. They had a gift for taking complicated ideas and making them simple. They could translate not just languages but emotions. They helped species understand each other in ways that raw data never could. Now that bridge was gone, and without it, the galaxy was remembering why so many species had hated each other in the first place. The collective and the hegemony were no longer speaking. Their trade partnership, which had lasted 30 years, was completely dead. Both sides blamed the other. Neither side was willing to apologize. The Enda had gotten into a border dispute over a small moon that neither species actually wanted. The argument had started over a translation error that a human diplomat would have caught immediately. Now both species had warships pointing at each other. Even the normally peaceful had withdrawn from galactic affairs. They said they could not function without meaningful philosophical exchange. Without the humans to talk to, they had nothing to say. And through all of this chaos, humanity remained silent. High Counselor called Intelligence Director to his private office. The room was small and dark, lit only by a single lamp that cast long shadows across the walls. "We need to find them," said. His scales were pale and sickly looking. He had not been sleeping well. His mechanical eyes glowed steady red. "They do not want to be found." "I do not care what they want. The Council is falling apart. We need them back." "With respect, High Counselor, have you thought about why they left?" Scales flashed angry red. "They left because they are children who could not handle the responsibilities of being part of the galactic community." Said nothing. He simply stood there, his face expressionless. "What?" demanded. "Say what you are thinking." "I have finished my investigation, High Counselor. I know why they left." The intelligence director placed a data chip on his desk. It looked exactly like the one had left behind. The same size, the same soft blue glow. "What is this?" "The truth. I found it buried in our own records. Council files from the first years of human contact. Files that were classified and hidden away. Files that someone wanted forgotten." Stared at the chip for a long moment. Then he inserted it into his desk display. The holographic screen came to life. It showed recordings of council meetings from 60 years ago, watched as the council members of that time discussed what they called the human problem. He watched them debate how to manage humanity's rapid growth. He watched them create a series of policies designed specifically to limit human influence. Trade restrictions that made it harder for humans to sell their goods, travel bans that kept humans away from certain parts of the galaxy, technology embargoes that prevented humans from advancing too quickly, cultural suppression that tried to keep human ideas from spreading. Every obstacle humanity had faced in the Council, every setback they had suffered, every tradition that had excluded them, all of it had been planned. All of it had been coordinated. All of it had been deliberate. "We sabotaged them," whispered. His scales had gone completely white. "For 60 years," confirmed. And they knew. They knew almost from the beginning. But instead of fighting back, instead of exposing what we were doing, they simply worked harder. They found ways around every obstacle we put in front of them. They built friendships despite every barrier we created. They made themselves essential despite everything we did to prevent it. "Then why leave now?" asked. Why, after surviving so much, would they just walk away? Pulled up one more document from the archive. It was a council memo from 7 months ago, marked with the highest level of secrecy. "Resolution 7743, said quietly. "The proposal to officially classify humanity as a contained species. It would have given the Council control over human reproduction. It would have required monitoring of human population growth. It passed the preliminary committee vote 6 days before Ambassador asked for her emergency session." Stared at the document. He had not known it existed. He had not seen it before. But there at the bottom was his signature, along with the signatures of 40 other senior council members. He remembered now. The vote had been conducted quietly, buried among hundreds of other administrative matters. He had not even read the full proposal. It had seemed unimportant at the time, just another routine policy decision. "I did not even read it," he admitted. His voice was hollow. "It was just paperwork." "They noticed," said. "They noticed, and they decided they were finished letting us hurt them." Sat in silence for a long time. The weight of what he had learned pressed down on him like a physical force. 60 years of cruelty. 60 years of discrimination. 60 years of treating an entire species like a problem to be solved rather than a people to be welcomed. And the humans had known. They had known everything. But instead of hatting the Council, instead of seeking revenge, they had simply tried harder to prove themselves worthy. Until they realized that no amount of trying would ever be enough. "What have we done?" asked no one in particular. Had no answer. Some questions were too big for answers. Outside the window, the stars continued to shine, cold and indifferent to the troubles of the beings below. Somewhere out there, humanity was building a new home, a place where they would not have to prove themselves, a place where they would not be treated as a problem. And the Council, which had driven them away, was only now beginning to understand what it had lost. Stood slowly. His old bones ached and his heart felt heavy in his chest. "We have to tell the others. The full Council needs to know what we did." "Many will not want to hear it," warned. "Many will prefer to blame the humans rather than admit our own mistakes." "I know," walked to the window and stared out at the stars. "But the truth does not care whether we want to hear it. The truth simply is. And if we cannot face what we have done, we do not deserve to lead this Council." He turned back to, "Prepare a full assembly. I will address the Council tomorrow." "Yes, High Counselor." Left the room, his heavy footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. Remained at the window, watching the stars and thinking about all the ways the universe could have been different. If only they had been kinder. If only they had been wiser. If only they had seen the humans not as a threat to be contained, but as friends to be welcomed. But the past could not be changed. Only the future remained, uncertain and waiting, and knew, with terrible certainty, that the future would judge them harshly for what they had done. 1 full year had passed since humanity left. High Counselor stood before the full council assembly. He had done this thousands of times before. He had announced wars and peace treaties. He had welcomed new species and mourned dead ones. He had guided the council through countless crises. But he had never done anything like this. "I have called this meeting to share information that has been hidden from most of you," he began. His voice was steady, but his scales were pale with shame. Information about the real reason humanity left. He told them everything. The 60 years of deliberate suppression, the secret committees that had worked to limit human growth, the classified resolutions that had blocked human progress at every turn, and finally, Resolution 7743, the proposal to control human reproduction. The chamber exploded with noise. Some delegates shouted in outrage at how humanity had been treated. Others defended the old policies, arguing that they had been necessary to protect the galaxy from a rapidly growing species. Many simply sat in shock, unable to believe that such coordination had happened without their knowledge. But it was Ambassador Aura who asked the question that silenced everyone. "If the humans knew we were working against them," she said slowly, her crystal body dim with confusion, "why did they help us anyway? Why did they keep building bridges between our species when we were actively trying to burn them down?" Nobody had an answer. The search for humanity began immediately. Probe ships were sent to every known human colony world. The scouts found all 17 planets completely empty. The humans had evacuated everything. Buildings stood silent and abandoned. Cities had become ghost towns. Not a single human remained. Scout vessels traced human shipping routes into unexplored space. They found navigation beacons that had been switched off after the human fleet passed through. The trail went cold quickly. Communication experts broadcast messages on every frequency that humans were known to use. They sent greetings in every human language. They promised peace and friendship and understanding. There was no response, only silence. The breakthrough came from an unexpected place. Young Delegate, the small who had retrieved data chip on that first day, had been given a boring job. His superiors wanted him to review old human communications. Nobody thought it was important work. Nobody expected him to find anything useful. But was thorough, and was patient, and after months of careful study found a pattern. "High Counselor," he reported nervously to a small meeting of senior leaders, "I have discovered something in the human cultural transmissions from the past 60 years, in their entertainment broadcasts." "Entertainment?" asked. "What could stories and songs possibly tell us?" "They were telling us everything," High Counselor activated his presentation. "They were telling us exactly how they felt, exactly what they were planning, through their stories." Images filled the room, human films, human books, human music, human art, all of it showing the same ideas over and over again. A small group standing against a larger, uncaring system. The choice to walk away from those who would not respect you. The power of silence when words had failed. The dignity of leaving rather than begging. Every piece of human culture sent to the Council in the past 60 years contains these themes, explained. They were practically shouting their intentions at us. We just were not listening. "Because it was just entertainment," said slowly. "We did not take it seriously." "We did not take them seriously," corrected gently. "And that is exactly why they left." The young delegate's analysis led to another discovery. Hidden in the last human cultural transmission, broadcast just days before their departure, was a secret message. When decoded, it contained a single set of coordinates, a location in unexplored space. "It could be a trap," warned military commander, a massive covered in battle scars. "Or it could be an invitation," suggested quietly. made his decision without hesitation. "Prepare my personal ship. I will go alone." "High Counselor, the danger is too great. You should not risk yourself." "I signed the resolution that drove them away. I am responsible for what happened. If anyone should face whatever waits at those coordinates, it should be me." The journey took 3 days. Small ship traveled through regions of space that no Council vessel had ever visited, not because they were difficult to reach, but because no one had ever bothered to look. The galaxy was so vast, and the Council had been so certain that nothing important existed beyond their borders. How wrong they had been. When ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel, he could not believe what he saw. 3 beautiful planets orbited a gentle yellow sun. Each planet glowed with the unmistakable signs of advanced civilization. Cities, orbital stations, ships moving between worlds in constant, purposeful patterns. In 1 year, humanity had built what most species took centuries to achieve. They had not been running away. They had been going home. A communication signal reached his ship almost immediately. "Unidentified Council vessel, this is New Haven Traffic Control. Please state your purpose." Activated his transmitter with shaking hands. "I am High Counselor of the Galactic Council. I have come to speak with Ambassador." There was a long pause. Could imagine the confusion on the other end. The leader of the very council they had fled, showing up alone at their doorstep. Then the voice returned. "Hold your position. You will be escorted to the surface." 2 sleek human fighters appeared on either side of his ship. They guided him down through the atmosphere of the nearest planet, past floating cities and green forests and blue oceans that sparkled in the sunlight. The city where they landed was beautiful, in a way had never experienced before. Council cities were designed to impress. They had tall towers and grand monuments, and everything was built to show power and importance. But this human city was different. The buildings were not trying to intimidate anyone. The streets were not designed to make visitors feel small. Everything was simply comfortable, warm, welcoming. He was taken to a modest building near the city center. No guards stood at the door. No security systems scanned him for weapons. They simply trusted him to behave. Inside waited alone. She had aged slightly since he last saw her. There were more lines around her eyes, more gray in her hair, but her expression was exactly the same as it had been in the council chamber 1 year ago. Calm, patient, unreadable. "High Counselor," she said. "Ambassador." They stood facing each other across the small room. The leader of the galaxy's greatest political power and the representative of a species that had chosen to leave it all behind. Had prepared speeches. He had rehearsed diplomatic phrases. He had planned careful arguments designed to convince humanity to return. But standing here, in this quiet room, all of those words seemed hollow and meaningless. "I came to apologize," he said simply, "and to ask you to come back." Studied him for a long moment. Her eyes seemed to look right through him, seeing every mistake he had ever made, every wrong decision, every moment of carelessness that had contributed to humanity's suffering. "The Council does not want us back because they realize they wronged us," she said finally. "They want us back because they discovered they need us. Those are very different things." "You are right," admitted. "You are absolutely right." He had come expecting a negotiation. Instead, he found himself facing something much harder. The truth stood before in that small, quiet room. Outside, the human city hummed with life. Children played in parks. Workers went about their business. Families shared meals together. None of them seemed angry or bitter. They had simply moved on and built something new. "For 60 years, said, his voice heavy with shame, "my people worked to suppress yours. We limited your growth. We blocked your trade. We excluded you from important decisions. We treated you like a problem to be managed rather than a people to be welcomed." His scales had shifted to pale blue, the color of deep shame. It was not a color he showed often. And when you continued to succeed despite our efforts, he continued, we plan to take even more drastic measures. Resolution 7743 would have controlled your population. It would have monitored your families. And I signed it without even reading it because, to me, you were not worth the attention. He forced himself to meet her eyes. I am sorry, not because I need your help, not because the council is falling apart without you. I am sorry because what we did was wrong. What I did was wrong. Said nothing for a long moment. She walked to a window that overlooked the city below. Humans moved through the streets, living their lives, free from the judgment of species that had never accepted them. Do you know what hurt the most? She asked finally. It was not the trade restrictions. It was not the travel bans. It was not even Resolution 7743. She turned to face him. It was that for 60 years we gave you everything we had, our creativity, our passion, our willingness to see the good in every species we met. We built bridges between peoples who had hated each other for centuries. We solved problems that had stumped your scientists for generations. We made your galaxy a better place. Her voice was calm but firm, and it was never enough. No matter how hard we worked, no matter how much we gave, we were always the newcomers, the young ones, the species that had not earned its place. You had earned it, said, 1,000 times over. We know, that is why we left, walked back to the center of the room. We did not leave because we were angry, though we were. We did not leave because we wanted revenge, though some of us did. We left because we finally understood that no amount of service would ever change how you saw us, and we deserved better than to spend forever trying to prove ourselves to people who would never accept us. Felt the weight of her words pressing down on him. She was right, about everything. What would it take for you to return? He asked. We are not going to return. The words hit him like a physical blow. He had traveled across the galaxy hopping to bring humanity back, to fix the mistake the Council had made, to restore what had been lost. But, continued, we are willing to start over, a new relationship, equal partners, no more provisional membership, no more oversight committees, no more secret resolutions about controlling our population. She stepped closer to him. And you do not speak for us, you speak with us. Any decision about rejoining the galactic community will be made by our people, not your council. Those terms would require fundamental changes to how the council operates, said. Yes, they would. Many species will resist. They might, but they might also realize what you have realized, that a galaxy without humans is smaller, colder, and lonelier than one with us. Smiled, and for the first time the expression reached her eyes. We never wanted to rule anyone, we just wanted to belong, and we finally found a place where we do. She extended her hand toward him. Stared at the offered hand. Such a simple gesture, such a human gesture, an offer of connection, of trust, of the possibility that things could be different. He took her hand in his. I cannot promise the council will accept these terms, he said. I know, but you accepting them is a start, squeezed his hand gently, then let go. Go back to your council, High Counselor. Tell them what you have seen here. Tell them that humanity is not their enemy, not their servant, and not their problem to solve. Tell them that we are here, building something beautiful, and that they are welcome to be part of it. And if they refuse, walked him toward the door. Then they will continue without us, and we will continue without them. And in 1,000 years, when historians write about this time, they will ask why the great Galactic Council let pride cost them their greatest allies. She opened the door. Sunlight streamed in from the peaceful city outside. But I have hope, I have always had hope. It is a very human quality, this ability to believe that tomorrow can be better than today, even when everything suggests otherwise. She smiled one last time. I hope to see you again, as a friend. Returned to the council and present its terms. The debates lasted for months. Some species refused immediately. Others saw wisdom in starting fresh. Many simply did not know what to think. In the end, it was young delegate who cast the deciding vote. He stood before the full assembly, small and nervous but determined. "We spent 60 years trying to contain them," he said, "and they spent 60 years proving they could not be contained. They built bridges we tried to burn. They found beauty in species we dismissed. They made us better despite our worst efforts to prevent it." He took a deep breath. "I vote to accept humanity's terms, not because we need them, though we do, but because they were right to leave and we would be fools not to welcome them back on their own terms." The vote passed by a narrow margin. 1 year later, the first official human delegation returned to Council Station Alpha. Ambassador led the group through the same massive doors she had walked out of in silence 3 years before. The chamber was full. Every species was represented. Every eye was watching. The air was thick with tension and hope and the weight of history being made. Stepped up to the human podium. She looked out at the assembled delegates, all 543 species, all waiting to hear what she would say. For a long moment she said nothing. The silence stretched out, echoing the silence of her departure. Then she smiled. "We are back," she said simply. "Let us begin." The chamber erupted in applause, not from everyone but from enough. Enough to show that things could be different, enough to prove that change was possible. Outside the great windows of the council chamber, the stars continued their eternal dance. Billions of points of light, each one a sun, each one possibly circled by worlds full of beings trying to find their place in the universe. The galaxy was vast and old and often cruel, but on this day, in this moment, it felt a little warmer, a little kinder, a little more hopeful. Humanity had left without saying a word. They had returned with only two, "Let us begin." And that, perhaps, was all that needed to be said. The future stretched out before them, uncertain but bright. There would be challenges ahead. Old prejudices would not disappear overnight. Trust would need to be rebuilt slowly, one conversation at a time, one act of kindness at a time. But for the first time in a very long time, the future felt possible. And that was enough. That was everything.